talk about the third aspect of happiness. And we're going to unpack this with a question from a listener named Steve.
Hey, Mel, this is Steve. Mel, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being your authentic self right there in front of us, changing lives. And you truly are amazing. And I really want you to know that. I was wondering today if you could talk about inner peace and the difference between that as opposed to material possessions, money, status, job titles, you name it. And instead, the feeling of happiness within yourself to be comfortable with. Thank you, Mel.
Oh, Steve, first of all, thank you for saying such kind and heartfelt things about how I'm showing up. I really, really appreciate it. Makes me feel warm. Second, this question about happiness with yourself, inner peace, as opposed to chasing those material possessions, job titles, this is really front and center in my life right now. And so I've been thinking a lot about this person and what he means to me, the person that he was, how he made me feel as a friend. You know, at the end of the day, that's what truly matters, right? I mean, you're never going to see a hearse limo pulling a U-Haul to a graveyard because we can't take all that shit that we've been chasing down in life with us. And it truly doesn't matter. What matters is how you feel about yourself, the kind of person that you are, and what we know based on the research is the quality of the relationships that you have. And the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. I say it over and over and over again. And that is very closely tied to inner peace. Because if you're beating the hell out of yourself, if your dialogue about yourself is super negative, that's not going to make you happy. And inner peace, the term that you used, it is defined as feeling content and secure. Dr. Daniel Gilbert, who is a professor at Harvard, he did this huge study that close to half of our waking moments are spent thinking about something other than what we are doing in the moment. And so when you talk about inner peace, study after study shows that a wandering mind, thinking ahead, worrying about what's next, I'll be happy when this happens, not being present, that a wandering mind is deeply connected to unhappiness. Because if you're always wandering ahead or worried about what's next or chasing down something that hasn't happened, I'll be happy when, you're never actually in your life. A wandering mind is the opposite of inner peace. And when your mind wanders, and look, you are able to think ahead. You're able to look back. It's one of the amazing things about being human. But when you live in a state where you're never present, you rob yourself of the extraordinary, ordinary moments in life. That inner peace, that contentment, that security, that you're okay, that you're aware of what's happening, that you're present to it. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Research shows that the amount of time that you think you have left to live, it shapes your priorities now. And if you think you have a ton of time, you're often thinking about the future, but you're not in the present right now. Yet, research shows that the nearer you get to the end of your life, the more you begin to appreciate the presence, which is why, despite the fact that most of us, say, oh, old people are grumpy, that's actually not true. That's a myth. Research shows that people are their happiest in the later years of their lives. Why? Because older people, everyone over 70, they're much more likely to be present and not worry about the bullshit that you and I wrap ourselves around the axle about. They're more present in the moment to just be happy with the extraordinary, ordinary aspects of life. I was just with my parents. It's so funny because they're in their 70s. And I noticed their life is very simple. They get up, they go for a walk, they see their friends for breakfast, they play golf, they play mahjong, they read a book, they watch the sunset, they go to a friend's house. They're in the moment. They don't need some big thing to chase. They're just in the moment, enjoying the feeling of living. I want to say that again. Part of inner peace and being present and being alert in your day-to-day life is the feeling of actually living. It means you're no longer an autopilot. You're able to pay attention to what's in front of you. And the real superpower is being able to do that no matter how old you are. Mindfulness just means connecting with the present moment. Inner peace is just about being present. So how can you bring this into your life? There are 2 ways I'm going to suggest that you do this, okay? Number 1, when you are around other people, actually listen to them. I didn't say hear them. I said listen to them. There's a big difference between hearing what somebody says and listening to them. Listening to someone is when you actively give the other person the experience that you are present. And your attention is the most basic form of love that you could give somebody else. And practice listening and being present and making somebody feel like you are right there with them, not in your head, being in the moment. It is an act of love, and it is a way to cultivate mindfulness and to cultivate that warm connection. The second way that you can tap into this is that when you're doing a task, just something in your ordinary life, hyper focus on it. I call this moving meditation. And I'll give you 2 examples. Number 1, I love to eat nuts, okay? Little confession. I like the blistered peanuts, salted, from Trader Joe's, and I love myself some smoked almonds. So I'll grab a handful of those. And one way that I practice being present and mindful is I eat them one at a time. And I try to notice the difference in taste between one nut and another. And it's pretty surprising. Like, you eat a handful of nuts, you don't really taste a big difference of anything. You eat them one at a time, it's amazing how it pulls you into the moment. The second thing that you can do is I love having a flower right at the kitchen sink because I love flowers and it pulls me right in, and I will stare at that flower and be in the present moment. A third way that I practice this inner peace, I practice this eudaimonic type of happiness in my day-to-day life, is savoring the moments. So last night, I taught Oakley, our son, how to make his absolute favorite recipe, which is from the cookbook 6 Seasons that my mom bought me, and it is called beef with lots and lots and lots of onions. It is the easiest thing on the planet to make. You take a hunk of beef, you brown it, you throw some garlic in, you throw some thyme in, you throw a little butter, little wine in, and lots and lots and lots and lots of onions. That's it. And then you bake that sucker at 300 for like 5 hours, and the whole thing melts into this soupy, messy, amazing goop where the onions disintegrate, and it's like shredded beef and a French onion such and such. And we just had so much fun. I was so in it when we were cooking. And because I was in the moment, I wasn't wandering ahead. I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was with him. I was happy. And so let's go back to our metaphor. Being in the present moment is a lot like walking on the beach. Whether it's a stormy day or the ocean is still, whether it's raining or the sun is rising or the sun is setting, or there are amazing waves that you want to surf. When you're walking on the beach, a great walk is one where you are fully present. You feel the sand between your toes, the wind in your hair, the salt on your skin. You're staring at the ocean and gazing at the beauty no matter what kind of day it is. You're not thinking ahead. You're not reflecting on the past. You're just in the moment, happy. That's what happiness is. And so when you are thinking about happiness, always come back to this metaphor because it embodies 84 years of research and studies around the world. The waves remind you to have fun. Get off that blanket of yours, grab your friends, and jump in the waves and play. The big, still ocean, swimming, floating, it reminds you to get into the deep end, and it's way more fun in there if you're floating around with your friends. Nothing like a warm day. You want those warm relationships. Spend more time with them. Invite them to the beach with you. That's who you want on the sand, on the towels, in the water with you. The people that make you feel warm. And finally, walking on the beach, being present, being in the moment, constantly coming back to these 3 fundamental things. And the fact is, you never know how much time you have. You just don't. So now more than ever, I just want you to not only appreciate the moment, I want you to take these small steps to truly enjoy the moment and be happier in your life. I want to ask you a question on behalf of anyone that's listening that is up to their eyeballs in debt and is having trouble dreaming and is trying to make ends meet, or maybe it's not even the debt. It's that with 2 kids in college and bills to pay and a mortgage, they're just in those crunch years of just grinding it out.
Yeah.
What is the concept of a rich life? And can you walk us through, regardless of where we are financially, how we start to define it for ourselves? Because we've covered the money dials, but I want to just get a flat definition from you of what a rich life is and what are the steps you walk somebody through, regardless of where they are, to creating one.
A rich life is when you look at your life and you go, wow, this feels amazing. Now, you can have a rich life and still be in debt. That's okay. You can have a rich life and not be exactly where you want to be ultimately. But a rich life can be traveling 2 months a year. It can be buying a beautiful cashmere coat. A rich life can be picking up your kids from school every afternoon. The key is that your rich life is yours. It's not mine. It's not your friends, not your parents. It's yours. And in fact, the more you carefully define your rich life and really turn those dials up and down, the more bewildering your rich life will be to other people. I'll give you an example from my own life. My rich life is really weird to other people, and that's exactly what it should be. I love spending extravagantly on travel. I'm a hotel guy. I have a list of hotels in all parts of the world. I know the exact room I want to stay in. Like, I love it. I'm obsessed. That's my thing. I also love clothes. I love them. I spend a lot on it. And so those things are things I spend extravagantly on. On the other hand, my car is not that important to me. And to give you a point of comparison, I've spent more in 1 year on travel than I spent in 20 years on all of my car expenses added together.
Wow.
So that's crazy. That's bewildering. It makes no sense to somebody listening. And that's exactly how it should be. If you love camping, maybe you turn that dial up. You find a way to have smaller costs for your rent or mortgage. And instead, you're going camping, I don't know, X weeks per year. You've got some place you go that nobody else knows about, some equipment that's amazing. You take friends with you. Amazing. Not my thing. I've got a reader of mine who told me he retired in his 30s with his wife. They travel around the country in an RV. I go, that sounds like hell.
Yeah,
to
too.
me.
No way.
But
to them?
I love that it's their rich life.
Yes. So are there particular questions other than the money dial that you would want us to ask ourselves or answer in order to start to really define it? Because I agree with you. Most people, when you ask them for real, what do you want? It's like,
It's hard. It's a really big question.
Yes.
So what we can do is we can zoom in and out.
Okay.
To help people create some context around it.
Okay.
So, I have this journal, which you can do solo or with your partner. And I'm going to give you a few exercises that are really helpful. Let's start big picture, and then we'll zoom really tight down to day to day.
okay.
So this is a fun exercise. I did this one with my wife. We sat down and we said, let's create a 10-year bucket list. So in the next 10 years, what do we want to do that would make this an amazing and rich 10 years?
Whoa.
Okay. So we took 2 separate pieces of paper. We spent a few minutes. We wrote it down. And then we came back and compared it. And this is a really cool opportunity to recalibrate the way you talk about money, because it's dreamy. It's fun. You don't have to commit to anything. So you want to get curious. One of us is like, oh, I want to learn Spanish. And the other one goes, oh, cool. You want to do that online? Or like, would you want to go to Mexico City and do an immersion? The other one, for one of my things was I want to write a book at a hotel. Makes perfect sense. I don't necessarily love writing, but if I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write it in an amazing luxury hotel that I love.
Which one?
Okay, cool. Oh, so there was one in Kyoto that I love. And in fact, recently went there on a writing project. I achieved one of my 10-year things. Yeah. And the funniest part, my wife was going to Japan anyway with some friends. She goes, hey, why don't you go and work on your writing project? I know you love that hotel and you've got the time. Why don't you? And I was like, oh yeah, it didn't even occur to me. So sometimes you need somebody to remind you about your
Now,
life.
if you're single or you're newly divorced or you've just graduated from college, do you recommend that you grab a friend or a sibling or somebody, or is this something best
No, you
done?
can do it solo.
You can do it solo. Okay.
Yeah, you could totally do it solo. So you come up with a list of things, and it's things that are exciting, that you would look back on and be like, wow, that was a really cool 10 years. I remember that's memorable. Okay. Then, so the two of you have, if you're in a partnership, you've asked each other, if you're solo, you're looking at them, and you're picking one that really jumps out at you. Don't overthink it. It's the one that you go, I want to do that above all others.
In the next 10 years,
Yep.
I got to go to Australia for a month. In the next 10
Perfect.
years,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's mine, but I'm just saying, like, what
Yeah.
are some of the things you've seen from the millions of people that you've helped?
We want to take a family trip to Italy. Super common. Everybody wants to go to Italy. Like it's like, and I love hearing it because I then get to help them dimensionalize it. Like Italy alone is just a word. I want to know, what seat on the airplane are you flying? What season are you going? What are you wearing? Where are you eating? I want to know every detail to the point where we can almost smell it, because then it becomes vivid and aspirational.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what we're doing in this first process. It's actually really fun. Oh my God, we get to go on a pizza tour, whatever. Then you pick that one, and solo or together, you go, all right, let's actually make it happen. When do I want to do this? In our case, we decided we want to have an amazing 10-year wedding anniversary. We were inspired by some friends of ours who did it, and we were like, what? People actually do that? And then we're like, well, who cares if people do it? We want to do it. And so we said, that's it. We happen to know the exact date we want to do it and the location. If you want to go to Italy or wherever, you got to pick a specific month and year. It's got to now start getting specific. And then you got 2 more steps, and then you're good to go.
Hold on. Let me just clarify something.
Yeah.
What Ramit is teaching you to do is to dream again and to attach very positive and aligned emotion with what a rich life would feel like. And I think so many of you are going to have trouble even getting past this part and giving yourself permission to do it because of the amount of mistakes that you made. And, I'll just say, Ramit, when Chris's restaurant business was really struggling and we had liens on the house and couldn't pay for groceries at times, and I had lost my job, dreaming seemed impossible, but it was actually a lifeline because it made me feel like this was going to be temporary, that we would figure out a way through this. And so I just want to underscore that if you're like got crushing student debt right now, if you've gone through a divorce and you're in financial ruin, this is actually exactly what you need to do. Because if you continue to stare at the debt, you're going to feel disempowered, which means your actions will be disempowered. If we can give you a beacon out on the distance to raise your gaze and get you feeling inspired again, something to work toward, that we know based on the research, that's your big why when it comes to a goal. And so I love what you're doing here because it's the exact opposite of what a financial advisor would tell you, which is you'd sit down, you'd go through the numbers, you'd feel like an imbecile. You'd basically get somebody politely telling you you're fucked and you shouldn't buy coffee out and you shouldn't enjoy yourself until you get your debt under control and you pay this off. And that can come. But let's first get the conversation fun and exciting again, because when you're in that kind of mood, you're going to be more motivated to do the tedious bullshit that any financial advisor can tell you, correct?
Correct, 100%. And thank you for slowing us down and really providing the context behind why we are doing it this way. I don't want us to shrink our world to a spreadsheet. That's not going to help you. That's not going to help anybody. Instead, what I want to do is expand our vision, even if it feels impossible to dream, and to say, look, just in this moment, on this piece of paper, let's dream for a second. And it's having a conversation with yourself or your partner and saying, we may not be able to even see how we can get there today, but we've got time. And if we put the intention behind it and we marshal our resources, I think we can do this.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Okay.
Absolutely beautiful.
So you've got one powerful vision of what you want to accomplish in the next 10 years. I say powerful because it's not like eating at a restaurant. That's not powerful enough. I had a guy once tell me his rich life is coffee. And I just sat there and then I said, that's boring. I just told him point blank and he was shocked. Oh, somebody's telling me my rich life is boring. I was like, yeah, that's boring. You can't just say coffee. Like this guy had a lot of money. I go, okay, if you love coffee, then tell me you want to go to Guatemala and take a behind-the-scenes tour of a farm. Tell me you want to go to the National Barista Competition and bring somebody. Tell me something beyond I want to order an extra Dunkin' Donuts coffee shipped to my house. No, that's not acceptable. So sometimes I have to challenge people to think bigger. You got something big. It could be skydiving. It could be a trip, whatever. All right. You know the date.
Okay.
Specifically the
so
month.
So in the next 10 years, you got to pick a date, the month and the year.
Yep. You got to be specific. Then this is the hardest part, but it should take no more than 5 minutes.
Okay.
Approximate the cost. So if you're going to Italy, people, they start to freak out because
I just freaked out.
Yeah. It's like we revert back to 7th grade math and we're like, oh, got to do the quadratic equation and get it perfect. I go, listen, you don't need any decimal points. Okay. In fact, you could approximate on the back of a napkin. How much is a flight going to cost approximately? You know, add 15% because you forgot about tax and all that stuff. What's a hotel going to cost? I don't know. Google hotel, Italy, Rome, whatever. Okay, let's double the price because maybe we want to stay at a nice hotel. All right, fine. That's the level that we're talking about here.
Okay.
And if you have two different, like my wife and I had two completely different numbers. Mine was way bigger. And my rule is if you got two numbers, go with the bigger one.
Got it. Okay.
Go with the bigger one. And so now you've got a beautiful vision. You've got a month and year. You've got the approximate amount it's going to cost. The last step is to make it a reality. How do you do that? Let's say that it's 10 years away. It's going to cost $10,000. I'm just making it up. Mm-hmm. That means you need to be saving $1,000 a year or roughly, $100 a month.
Okay.
Roughly. Okay, we could do that. Suddenly you start to understand a little concept of like time and money, and you set up an automatic savings from your checking account to your savings account for $100 a month, and you call it Dream Trip 2030. Boom. Every month that you are talking about money in what I call a Rich Life Review, it's like a video game. You see, we're getting 3% closer, and that is a joy.
I love this. And I know that is that what you call a conscious spending plan?
Conscious spending plan's a little different.
Okay.
but it would incorporate that. Yes.
Okay. While Ramit is a financial advisor, he's the host of a hit television show. He's a New York Times bestselling author, and he's helped millions of people change their thinking and mindset and psychology and relationship with money and launch businesses and get out of debt and create and build the life, the rich life of their dreams. I really want to make sure people leave with a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
What do most people, without realizing, have if they don't have a rich life already? Like if you think about the people that came on the Netflix show, or any of the millions of students that come to your website every month, what is the current mindset that most people have? And then I want you to leave us with a definition of what is possible if you apply these tools and you listen to Ramit.
The mindset that most of us have is what I would equate to being at work and getting one email after another and simply being an order taker. Okay, this person emailed me. Oh, I got to get back to that person. And that is life. And that is most people's lives forever when it comes to money. I got this bill. We got to get diapers. Uh-oh, the car broke down. How are we going to respond to it?
Yeah.
It's just one arbitrary problem after another. And I don't wish for those problems to go away. Cars break down. Sometimes we go into debt. That's life. Instead, I want to give you a whole new way of looking at them, which is to say, agonizing over, some tiny thing at the grocery store is actually never going to go away, and it's never going to change your life. And you could spend the rest of your life worrying about it. And in my paradigm, that's a tragedy. What a tragedy to live a smaller life than you have to. What a tragedy to defer the rich life until some mythical day, which you don't even know when it's going to happen. And if I ask you, you apply an arbitrary number. No, we're not going to do that because you've listened to the two of us talking today. Instead, we're going to define it right now. What is our rich life? What are my money dials? What do I want to spend extravagantly on and therefore cut costs mercilessly on? And am I comfortable saying to myself and perhaps other people, I'm going to live my rich life today and an even richer life tomorrow? That's the vision I want to leave everybody with.
I freaking love that. Oh my God, you're amazing.
This is the, thank you. This is like, I love doing, I love seeing people's lives change when they see money in a different way.
Fantastic. Because when you see it in a different way, you act differently with it. And that's why this matters. Ramit's not saying, think about a rich life and all of a sudden there'll be $1 million in your bank account.
No,
that's not
it's
what
not
he's fucking
affirmations.
saying. No,
it's, you got to be competent. You got to know your numbers. Absolutely. I hold people to that. But when most people think about money, they see stress and overwhelm and debt. And when I look at numbers, I see a trip to Disneyland with your kids. I see an amazing food tour in India. I see the ability to never have to look at the price when you're at a restaurant. And that is what you can get when you understand how to use money.
I love this. One final question. For those people that have a mindset, I'm terrible with money, I'm bad with money, I'm never going to get out of debt. If you could drop in new programming, please tell them what they should start saying to themselves all day long about money instead.
The new phrase that I want you to use is, I haven't always been great with money, but now I'm learning. It's so simple. Such a simple reframe. Just nobody's expecting you to become a multimillionaire overnight. We don't even need that. But day by day, you put a little bit of time and attention into reframing your identity. I haven't always been good, but I'm starting to learn about money now. That can be listening to this episode, listening to my podcast, watching the Netflix show. It can be putting some time during your commute to listen to the audiobook. And certainly having some conversations with a partner. Maybe saying, you know what? I realize that when we talk about money, we're always stressed out. And I don't want that for us. I actually want us to feel good about money. And I realize I've got some work to do. Absolutely. But I'd love to do it together with you. Would you be willing to do that together? That's how you reframe it. Solo and with a partner.
I love that. I love that. And I want to add one more because I'm thinking about my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why I love your reframe, I haven't always been great with money, but now I'm learning to be great with it. I love that because, as you know, those sort of mindset reframes only work if your brain accepts it as true. Yep. And by leading with the fact that you acknowledge the fact that you haven't always been great, it's not a make wrong, it's just stating a fact. It now opens the door for your brain to go, oh, yeah, but now you're learning to be great. Okay, I got that. And so I could say for those of you that are on the spectrum of always been stressed, but you have it, I haven't always been, free with my money, but I'm now starting to enjoy it. I used to be stressed about my money, but now I'm learning how to enjoy it.
So good. I love that you add that positive emotion, because deep down, most of us don't need the fancy villa, but we do want to feel good day to day with our money.
Yes.
We want to know that if our kids ask us for something for school, we can get it. We want to know that if a friend comes into town and they say, hey, would you like to meet for lunch? Yeah, we can go. We don't even have to think about the numbers because we've already built in a margin of safety. We've built in some ability to take these spontaneous things that happen in life. That's a rich life. To not have to always be tight and restrictive, but to be fluid and accepting. And I love the way you put that. Enjoy money. That is so good.
Well, and here's the other thing that I love, if I had to put this all full circle, is that one of the things that we talk about all the time on this podcast, and you talk about it too, is the fact that we're all obsessed with getting to someplace. Like I got to get that beach house. I got to get out of debt, because we presume that we're going to feel a certain way when we achieve it. And what you're offering is a very clear, simple, step-by-step roadmap that helps you change how you feel about money and how you think about money, so that as you're creating this rich life and as you're taking responsibility, you feel more freedom. You feel happier.
It starts today.
It starts today.
Yeah, exactly. And I never believe in living a life of, I'll start doing all these things when I retire. It's about the journey. And I want you to also get to where you want to go, but it's even sweeter when the journey has been intentional.
Amazing.
And that is what we really want to create, a rich life today and a richer life tomorrow.
Amazing. So here's what we're going to do. You and me, we're bringing the fun. And rule number 1, stop focusing on all the logistics. Focus on the laughter. I'm not kidding about this. I want you to weave laughter into the logistics. If you did the work ahead of time to plan for fun and to make sure it's fun, it will be fun. And, when I say don't just focus on the logistics, also focus on the laughter, I want to tell you a quick story. So we're hosting Thanksgiving this year, and my husband, thank God, is handling the logistics. And so he put together an email, and he, assigned all the things out that everybody was doing. And bring the dogs, and, bring a bathing suit, and ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. And everybody replies back, excited to see you. And we're so excited to get together. And so now as the emails are starting to fly, I'm starting to feel excited. But everybody's just kind of commenting on the logistics. We'll be there Thursday. We'll be there Wednesday night. We're going to bring the dog. Blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, our son Oakley replies. And he replies in all caps, "People, we are going to destroy this feast!" Exclamation point. And I just laughed out loud. That could be you. Why not reply to the family logistics text chain with a hilarious GIF of somebody dancing with a turkey? Why not put in a hilarious photo of somebody in the family? Why not bring the fun? So don't just focus on the logistics. Make sure you focus on the laughter too. Now, let's talk about step 2. how do you stop falling into the, oh, fun will just happen spontaneity category, and you fall into the, I'm going to make this fun thing happen category? Well, let's look at the research. People who are happy do things that make them happy. That's one of those studies where I'm like, yeah, duh. But then you're like, oh, no wonder I'm not happy. I'm not doing anything or prioritizing happiness. They work at things that make them happy. And it makes sense because when you try things that make you happier, you're a happier person. Well, guess what? The exact same research relates to fun. It's seriously so obvious, it's kind of stupid, but let's have some fun with it, right? Let's not be embarrassed. Your life becomes fun when you plan things that are fun to you, or even when normal things. You just bring a fun attitude like our son did to the email chain. All caps, exclamation, let's go, people. And on that note, I want to share a story with you about the power of bringing the fun. Okay? Don't wait for somebody else to do it. Thankfully, we have somebody in our family who's incredible at this. Our oldest daughter, Sawyer, who's 23 years old, this woman always brings the fun. I mean, she is always doing something really fun with her friends. I can give you a few examples. There was one year where she and her friends were out in Breckenridge, Colorado, and I was looking at the photos online, and they were out at bars in these colonial costumes, literally, like think Holly Hobby, bonnets, prairie dress, apron. They had gone on a bar crawl in costume, like looking like women from a colonial era, like Little House on the Prairie. It was such a riot that people all over Breckenridge were stopping them. They were featured on the Breckenridge Facebook page. People were taking photos with them. I mean, talk about bringing the fun. That's hilarious. I mean, I'd never think to order costumes and go on a themed bar crawl. Who does that? Well, apparently people who have fun do that. Another thing that she did recently is we had all of her college friends from Boston College up with their moms for a big mother-daughter weekend. And when we found out that one of the moms, who was a widow, had just gotten engaged to her boyfriend, Sawyer turned to me and said, let's throw a wedding. I'm like, throw a wedding? She's like, yeah, we're going to throw a wedding. And sure enough, impromptu, they made a sash for the mom. We made a veil out of a paper towel, like a long thing of paper towel, and flowers out of like foil. And then we blew bubbles, and we had her daughter, who was wearing this huge foam hat, walk her down the aisle in our living room. And then Sawyer it was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Why? She brought the fun. When she heard something, she leaned into it, and we just improv. It was just amazing. And she also did this repeatedly during quarantine. So quarantine was actually a really awesome time for our family once we got over the grieving and we settled into the routine of being together, because our kids brought the fun. Sawyer went through and made an entire chart for the month of March, and she came up with theme nights every other night. There was a family Olympics night. There was a bake-off where we divided up into teams, and we had to bake desserts, and we also had to dress up as chefs. I mean, it was super fun. But the most fun night was a night that I had never heard of. This is a theme you should steal. I love this. It's an anything but clothes dinner. And what does that mean? I didn't know either. It means you have dinner with your family wearing anything but clothes. You're not supposed to go nude. You are supposed to wear something other than clothes. So Sawyer, for example, took 2 huge king-size pillows and duct taped them all around her. So she put one in the front, one in the back, and then duct taped it. So that was her clothes, or her outfit. I can't remember what Oakley wore, and I can't remember what Kendall wore, oddly enough. But I took a champagne bottle box, and I put it across my chest. And the way that I fastened it to me is I poked holes in the top of it, and then I put a ribbon around it and hung it like a necklace, and then put duct tape on the sides so it stayed in place. And then I made a pair of pants out of brown grocery store garbage bags, like 1 bag per leg, and then taped the front together. Now, Chris's outfit was something. Chris took a rubber pot lid. So, you know how you have like a metal pot lid? Well, somebody gave us once these like kind of rubber lids that you can put on top of dishes, like in the summer, so that flies can't get them. And it had like a little knob on it. He hung this thing across the front of him in front of his private parts. And that's all he wore, except for a pair of clogs and socks. I mean, when he came down the stairs, I almost had a heart attack. He had basically a pot lid across the front of him with a ribbon around his waist and clogs on. I'll tell you, we have laughed about that moment forever. And every time, we get into a fight, Chris threatens to wear that to the rehearsal dinner for one of our kids' weddings. What you're going to learn is that it's not that hard. It only takes one additional person to cause a major shift with you and have the fun be what everybody remembers. That's what we're going to do this holiday season. In fact, this is called the first follower theory. When you're the one person doing something out of the ordinary, people think you're crazy. Like, think about if you were to go in at the holidays and you're wearing some silly outfit. One of my favorite things to do is to buy themed blazers. You can get them really cheap on Amazon that are just ridiculous. Whether they have turkeys all over them or they have holiday decorations or they blink or whatever. Hilarious. If you're the only one wearing one, you might feel like an idiot. When two of you show up, now there's a party. That first follower that joins in with you turns you from you're an idiot to this looks like fun. Same's true about a dance floor, right? The first person that gets up, you're like, ooh, bad dance move. The second one, you're like, maybe I'll go, right? That's how you go from being the lone nut job to being the leader of the fun train, everybody. That's how fun becomes a movement. And so I'm going to take the first follower theory and I'm going to recruit someone to help me. And I want you to do the same. I am going to get our daughter Sawyer on the line because she is the CFO, the Chief Fun Officer of the Robbins family. And so as I get Sawyer on the line, I want you to think of your Chief Fun Officer, the person you're going to drag in to help you. Because if you both are like, come on, guys, everyone will be like, all right. And the fun bus will run the resignation and the cynicism right on over and make sure that fun bus has a damn good music dance party mix too, because that'll also bring the energy up. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we'll be right back because we're going to take a short break. But when we come back, I'm going to introduce you to the CFO, Chief Fun Officer of our family, Miss Sawyer Robbins. Oh, and we're going to talk about how the hell we're going to make our holidays fun. And in the process, we're going to give you some amazing ideas for how you can do the same. Okay, so Soy, thank you for being here because you know what? You are the funniest person in our family. Not only because you have the best sense of humor and you have the wittiest and driest sense of humor, but you also bring the fun. And you make our family so much better because of it. And I just love that about you.
Thank you.
I mean, literally, dude, everything. I mean, the foam hats, your idea. Dinner without clothing, your idea. A bar crawl in colonial costumes, your idea. Throwing a fake wedding, your idea. How the heck did you become so fun?
That is a tough question. Honestly, I feel like first off, I'm just very outgoing and obnoxious. So I think that kind of plays a role into it. But I think that I have been fortunate enough to be a part of friend groups where all we want to do is have fun and do things that are out of the ordinary. And I don't know, you can always just go to a bar, but it's more fun to dress up as like old women to go there. To just go alone. That's what I was for Halloween. I was a granny.
Can you please describe your costume to everybody? Because I think it's one of the best costumes I've ever seen.
I wore a wig and I got glasses and pearls and I got a cane and I was wearing like a sweater. I don't know. And I looked on probably 15 YouTube tutorials of how to make your makeup look like old women. And so I had like wrinkles all over me and a big mole. So yeah.
Oh, and you know what other detail I loved?
What?
You had on like New Balance geriatric sneakers, and
Oh yeah, that.
you had a COVID mask hanging from one of those eyeglass things. I mean, the attention to detail. And that's why I wanted to talk to you, because this is the first year that our family is hosting Thanksgiving at Ground Zero for Thanksgiving, which is the Southern Vermont House.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there are traditions that used to go with the Southern Vermont House when your grandparents owned the house. And now that we are the owners of the house, and this is the first Thanksgiving that we're inviting the extended family to come, that we should probably get really intentional about mixing up the traditions and inserting a lot more fun.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great, honestly.
Why? Do you think that that holidays are normally not that fun?
No, I think they're fun. I love holidays. If I could, I would just have Christmas all year long. But the fact that Thanksgiving is always a good time in when politics are not talked about or money or people's like life. I don't know. I feel like all we talk about is the boring stuff and what everyone does for work. And then Uncle Tom does his accents and everyone laughs and we have the exact same memories told over and over again. And then we go to bed. So I don't know. I'm down for some more fun this year for sure.
I agree. So, can you give me some ideas? Because you're a way more creative thinker than I am. And I remember when we were quarantining, you came up with a chart of themed evenings that we were going to do as a family in order to mix up the doldrum and to create things to look forward to.
I was able to see myself grow not only by my daily actions, but also by the way I started to think. One day, my wife and I were chatting in the kitchen, and she actually said to me to stop acting like I'm on a pedestal, a selfish Mr. Know-It-All, which I had no idea I was doing. So this got me thinking perhaps my change was affecting her, and for some reason I felt I was at fault. Can you speak specifically to your transition from being a regular parent to being Mel fucking Robbins, and how you overcame the family shakeup and what was all happening around that time? Thank you.
Whew. Okay, this is a great question. So, one thing first, how I went from being just like a normal person to quote Mel Robbins, there was not like some overnight thing that happened. I have gone, I am who I am today because of the work that I've done over probably a decade. Like, this is not like I won the lottery and I went from being broke to being a millionaire. This is, I went from being nearly bankrupt and basically a drunk on the verge of divorce in 2008 to 14 years later, meticulously one foot in front of the other, slowly changing, slowly learning about myself. And so my family has had the benefit of seeing a slow, sometimes so tedious evolution, because that's what true change is. It doesn't happen overnight, it happens over time. But what you're talking about is really important for us all to understand. And this is one of the most common questions that I get. Doesn't matter who you are, what kind of change you're making. The fact is, when you make a change, you create ripples that hit other people, whether you intend to or not. And this thing that I'm about to explain to you is so life-changing. And I didn't see this for a long time. I was guilty of being the kind of person that it sounds like you may be, that when you're really excited about something, You become a huge cheerleader. Let's all go gluten-free. Let's all become vegan. Oh, the best thing in the world is keto. Oh, you know what we should do? We should take this seminar. We should all exercise. We should do this. We should do that. You should become an entrepreneur. I became like a just big advocate. And when you do that, it can come off to other people like you think you're better than them. Now that you've quit smoking or you've quit drinking or you suddenly don't eat animals because you're a vegetarian. That sounded terrible. Now that makes me want to be a vegetarian, honestly, when I say it that way. But you know what I'm saying. And so let me explain why that happens. Okay. Number one, everybody, any change you make impacts any relationship you're in because relationships are about energy and relationships are also about overlapping patterns. And if you think about that, it's true. The people that you feel closest to in terms of your friend group are people that you click with. It also happens that you probably have a lot of overlapping patterns, whether it's you have patterns of interest that overlap, or you work together and that overlaps, or you have kids the same age and that overlaps, or you live in the same neighborhood and that overlaps. And so it's this energy and this pattern thing. The second you change anything in your life, energy shifts and patterns change. And that means every relationship's going to change. And that's not anything you can avoid. It's a fact of life. If you decide that you suddenly want to launch a side business, all of a sudden you're not going to have time on Saturday nights to hang out with your buddies playing poker. It's a fact because you're going to be interested in working on your side business. And as you work on your side business, you're going to start meeting other people that do the same kind of business. And because you are interested in that, you're going to be spending more time with them. Patterns change. I want you to accept that as a fact. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. But let's talk about the issue that you're facing with your wife, okay? Because this is what you need to understand about other people. Your changes do not inspire other people. They confront them. I'm going to say that again. Your changes do not inspire other people. They confront them. And I'm going to give you a famous example from my marriage. I am once again the jerk in the story, and Chris is the winner. There's no winners. That was me being funny. Chris is the transformed one. I'm the jerk, okay? So a couple years ago, Chris made this decision that he was going to stop drinking for a while. And I was so excited for him. He had had a major problem with alcohol as the restaurant business was really struggling. It was basically the way that he dealt with his stress. And so when he got out of the restaurant business, he's like, I got to make major changes. I got to stop drinking. I need to get healthy. I got to figure out who I am and what I want to do with my life. And so he decided step number one, not drinking. I'm like, yes. I was a yes for about 2 days. And then by day 3, dinner time rolls around. And I had a habit of loving to open up a bottle of wine while I was cooking. And so day 1 and day 2, I did not do that. I was supportive of my husband's change. And day 3, I'm like, meh, I think I'm going to have a glass of wine. Just because he's not drinking doesn't mean I can't drink. And by the way, Chris was also amazing in that he wasn't like, I'm doing this, you need to do this. He's like, I'm doing this for myself. So I open up the bottle of wine and I'm cooking and Chris is standing there and the kids are running around and I take out the wine glass and I'm like, glug, 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 glug. And then I say, hey, would you like to have a glass? And he's like, nope. I'm like, you sure? I mean, it's basically just juice. You know, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like you're having some bourbon. He's like, no, I don't want any wine, Mel. I'm like, come on. And he looks at me, kind of like he did this morning, actually, with the veterinary story. He looks at me very frustrated. And he said, Mel, I don't want to drink. Stop asking me to have a glass of wine. And I was like, whoo, because of course, when somebody's serious with you, you're like, oh, shoo. I told you I was a jerk. And then I said, I'm sorry. Sheesh, I just feel bad because, I feel bad having a glass of wine on my own. And then he said something that was a mic drop. He said, if you're concerned about what's in your glass, then maybe you should figure out your relationship to drinking. Because the fact is, Mel, nobody cares what's in your glass but you. And if me putting non-alcoholic seltzer in my glass makes you think about what's in your glass, then you've got some changing to do. And he's right. And this is my point. If somebody is confronted by your change, it's because your change is making them think about what they're doing or not doing in their own life. Just like Chris's decision to stop drinking made me think about my decision to have a glass of wine while I was cooking dinner every night. And here's the thing. He's right. Nobody gives a shit what's in your glass. But people who get confronted, it's easier for them to attack you or to get you to change your behavior than to take a look in the mirror and change their own. It's easier for me to question what Chris is doing than to look in the mirror and go, well, should I have a glass of wine? Maybe I don't want a glass of wine. Maybe it's just some dumb habit that I've had for 10 years and I don't really care about drinking wine. But now Chris is making me think about that. And it's a hell of a lot easier for me to question him than for me to question me. There's actually science around this. It's called my side bias. There is so much research about this cognitive bias. That's a fancy word for your brain has certain ways that it thinks that are totally screwed up, okay? And my side bias is what's called a true blind spot. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how educated you are. My side bias impacts absolutely every single one of us. What does that mean? That means once we have an opinion about something, we will argue for our side no matter what. Once we select an ice cream flavor, we will argue that this is the best damn thing. Once we vote for a candidate, oh, that person, even though they suck and they disappointed me, I'm going to argue for that candidate. This is my side bias. Chris is going to argue that not drinking is the best thing on the planet, and I'm going to argue that there's nothing wrong with having a glass of wine. And here's the problem with my side bias. Number one, it prevents you by being defensive about your side. It prevents you from being open to other ideas, other possibilities. Maybe you don't want to have a glass of wine when you cook dinner. Maybe you don't want to be playing poker with your buddies in their garage every Saturday night. You really would like to get started on that real estate business you've been thinking about for years. But instead, we argue for our side. In fact, at the University of Toronto, there is a doctor. He's also a professor, Dr. Keith Stanovich. He's a psychologist that teaches there. He has done so much research on my side bias. He's considered the scientist when it comes to the field of cognitive science. And some of the research that I dug up as I was looking at this, because I was curious, why are we so resistant to change? Why is it that when a friend of ours wants to roll out of bed and go to the gym at 7 o'clock in the morning, we tend to roll our eyes instead of rolling out of bed with them? Well, it has to do with this my side bias. In fact, there's interesting research here, and this is why it's so important for you to do what Chris did, which is don't try to make somebody else change. Don't try to make them have the water instead of the wine. Don't try to make them positive when they're wallowing. Don't try to make them healthy when they're not. Because based on the research, when you give somebody a lecture, which is basically the way that it feels when somebody says, you should lose some weight. Maybe you're drinking a little bit. That's a lecture. Only 3% of people change when they feel like the change is being forced upon them. 3%. Those are not great odds. You want to know better odds? When they think it's their idea. 37% of people will change when they believe the idea came from themselves. That is so important because if you actually would love to see people in your life make positive changes, you have to operate so that they believe the change is their own. So let me go back to the example with Chris. So if Chris had told me that he thinks I have a drinking problem, I would resist that because of my side bias. I would argue, oh, no, I don't. But when he says, stop pressuring me, Nobody cares what's in your glass but you. And if you're concerned about what's in your glass based on what I'm doing, then you need to think about what you should be doing, Mel. By asking that question and forcing me to think about my own behavior and my own choices, of course, whatever I do next is going to become my idea because he's forced me to think about what I actually want to do. So back to Dan. I'm sure, Dan, your wife feels judged. So first of all, apologize if anything that you've done in terms of your enthusiasm made your wife feel less than. Super simple thing to do. You can certainly invite her to participate with you, but do not tell her to. Do not lecture her about it. Do not force anything on her at all, because now you know only 3% of people ever change when they feel like the change is something somebody else wants them to do or is forcing them to do or is lecturing them about. So that's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two, you can ask your wife questions. Why does this bother you? What about what I'm doing inspires you? Is there anything that you would want me to change? Invite that kind of dialogue and you're going to open something up. Because if your wife or your spouse or your partner, your roommate, your friend, whatever, like let's take this broader than Dan's question. If somebody in your life is confronted by the changes that you're making, they're passive aggressive, they roll their eyes, this is normal. I want you to stop for a second and let's come back to a little bit of compassion. Your behavior sent a ripple that's making them feel triggered. And we know it's easier to question you than to question themselves. But trust me, if they're questioning you, they're also questioning themselves. And so remember the 3 rules. If they wanted to or if they could, they would. Number 2, you can't make them change. You can make them laugh. You can make them think. You can make them feel included, but you can't make them change. And number 3, please stop being mad that they're not who you want them to be. They may never be who you want them to be. Loving somebody means loving them where they are and where they're not. It means loving and accepting them for who they are and who they're not. Now, remember, you can have boundaries. You should talk to your wife about the ways in which you could talk about these changes that would be supportive to her. You can have boundaries with her, and she can have boundaries with you. Maybe your tone of voice is a little lectury, but she loves hearing about it. She just doesn't want to hear it as if it's a lecture or if she has to participate or if there's something wrong with her for not doing it. Chris, I have to say, handled this like a boss. He actually handled this like a boss in something going on right now. Every morning when that alarm goes off at 5:45, and I roll over to my left and I see that Chris is already up. He's already up and at 'em. And when I walk into the kitchen and I see his gallon jug of water, and he's already drunk a quarter of it, and it's only 6:15 in the morning. And at 6:30 a.m., after I've written in my journal and I've had my cup of coffee and I've set my intentions, and he's come in from his first workout of the day with our 2 dogs trailing behind, he doesn't say, "You should be doing this. Why aren't you acting? Oh, you're up now?" No. He's just focused on what's making him happy. And what's interesting is all these changes he's making, it is sending a ripple effect. You know what it's doing? It's making me go, I wonder what would happen if I got up a little bit earlier. Might be kind of nice to get up with him and take that walk with the dogs outside. Or, wonder what would happen if I exercised twice a day, if I took on this structure. And so the truth is, Chris made a change. It sent ripples through our marriage and our relationship, and he never said a damn word about it. The change itself is impacting me and making me think. So, pretty cool how that works, huh? And one more thing. Focus on you. Protect your energy, because when you protect your energy, you create peace in your life. And that is something that I want you to protect at all costs. My mission is to empower you, inspire you, to be connected to you so that you feel like You want to do the things that are going to create a better life. It's my hope that when you listen to this podcast, you think it's your idea to do these things. Like if I do that, we are both winning. If you then share this podcast, guess what? When your friends and family listen to me, even though it was your idea to send them the episode, they're going to think it was their idea. So I love the feedback that you're giving me, that you love sending these episodes to your friends and family, because it is sending the message that you can't send. And you're not alone. My kids don't listen to me either. If I try to tell Chris what to do or my brother what to do, we now know because of the my side bias, they're going to resist it. But when you listen to a podcast episode, I'm just getting the genius of this. You think it's your idea? I love that. And you know what? It is your idea. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who's responsible for your happiness. You're not responsible for keeping other people happy. You're responsible for your happiness and for creating the life that really lights you up. And when you bring more understanding and compassion to your relationships and you stop being mad at people because they can't do what you need them to do, trust me, you will be a happier person. Life will get easier. I want to talk to you about 3 simple steps that you can take to create powerful changes in your life. And I'm talking really big changes. Yes, the steps are simple, but simple over time creates amazing results. And simple is important because if it's simple, you can do it. As I already said, these are the 3 steps that led me to launching this podcast. They're the 3 steps that I used to help me start working on my marriage and making my mental health stronger. They're also the 3 steps that helped me make the move from a very busy and stressful life outside of Boston, Massachusetts, where my husband Chris and I had raised our family for the last 26 years, and make a major move and a major change to a simpler lifestyle by moving to a tiny town in southern Vermont. Now, using these 3 steps, I not only changed my life, I have reinvented every aspect of my life over the past 2 years. And today, I'm going to share those steps with you. I'm going to tell you the whole story. And I want to help you. I want to inspire and empower you to make the changes that you have been thinking about as you go about your day-to-day life. Speaking of life, I think about life as one long road trip. Your past right now is behind you. It's in the rear view mirror. And the future, it's right out that windshield. That's why the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror, because we're not going backwards, people. We're not doing that to ourselves. We are going ahead. And you know what's in front of you? An open road. Every single birthday, I believe, is a mile marker on this road trip called life. It's a chance to pull over for a second and think about the open road ahead. Where do you want to go next? How fast do you want to go? How slow? Who do you want to have in the car with you? There's endless metaphors around this, and it helps me think about this major topic of reinvention and change. Now, I love birthdays. I'm sure you do too, and I love them for so many reasons. Because every time you're celebrating a birthday, think about what you're actually celebrating. We're celebrating the fact that you're still here. We're celebrating your existence, that you're breathing, that you're alive. How cool is that? And you want to know what else we're celebrating when we celebrate your birthday? We're celebrating the possibility and magic that your life and the future and that next year holds for you. Now, there's one part of celebrating your birthday that I want you to really think about, okay? You know that moment when the cake comes out? Your mom or your dad or your spouse or your friends or the waiter, they bring out that cake and the candles are burning on top and everyone starts singing happy birthday to you. And then they put the cake down, you look at the candles, you close your eyes, and you make a wish. And for just a moment, time stops. Have you ever noticed that as that cake gets closer to you and you start going inside and thinking about the wish that you're going to make, you don't even hear anybody singing anymore. You hear something inside yourself. You hear something deep from within. You close your eyes, You grab that wish and you blow out those candles as if it's going to magically make that wish come true. And when you open your eyes, you are present to the wish. You feel excited for the year, and you can almost see all the new possibility that you could tap into in the year ahead. Well, researchers have a name for this exact moment. It's called the fresh start effect. When you make that birthday wish, you break from your past self, and this transformational window of time opens up. You think bigger. You feel hopeful and inspired. And there's some incredibly interesting research that explains why these moments are so powerful. I'm looking right now at a study from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania, where they've studied the intrinsic motivational power of this fresh start effect. Researchers studied moments in our life where we feel motivated to make big changes, and birthdays are an example of that. It's as if a birthday hands you a blank slate, a clean page, a fresh start at a whole new year. And this feeling inside you ignites an intrinsic, motivational, aspirational force that's hardwired within you. It's this power to change. Now, you've experienced this fresh start effect at other times in your life, too. Just think about the new year, January 1st. Hello, fresh start effect. Now, January 1st is one of those moments where all of a sudden, last year ends. Boom, slam the door on that year, and something new opens up. A whole new you, a clean slate, an open road. This is why, by the way, so many people start a diet on January 1st. Hello, Mel Robbins. So many people go to the gym for the first time on January 1st. It gives them a natural mental starting line to cross on a new leg of the journey called life. How cool is that? You also experience this fresh start motivation with every new semester in school, the start of a new sports season. You feel like this could be our year, right? That's the fresh start effect. The birth of a child, a breakup, a wedding, a death. These are all moments in time where something ends and something else begins. And it's not only happening in the physical space, it's happening in the psychological and spiritual space. That's why so much stirs inside you, according to the research. I just realized, this fresh start effect, this is probably why I am addicted to buying new journals. Every time I get a new journal, I crack it open and I literally feel like a new Mel is about to pour out on all those open, empty pages. This phenomenon is so powerful that researchers have even created a label to describe anything that triggers that fresh start motivation that stirs inside you, like your birthday, January 1st, that new journal, a new semester at school. These things are called temporal landmarks. Now, let me explain what a temporal landmark is. A temporal landmark is a date or an experience or a physical thing that marks the passing of time. January 1st, for example, is a date. It marks the end of one year and the beginning of a new year. And when the new year begins, you cross that starting line mentally to think about a whole new you. Your birthday is the exact same thing. It's another year, another mile on the road of your life, and this creates all kinds of new possibilities about the stretch of open road ahead. A new semester is an experience that's always brimming with excitement. New friends, new experiences, a chance to think differently about who you are and how you're going to show up and what you want. A breakup or a divorce, now that's a major temporal landmark because it not only marks time, it also impacts your identity, your life as a couple before, and now your life as you after the breakup. But here's what researchers have found that I think is fascinating about what happens to your psychology and motivation and thinking. Temporal landmarks not only mark the passing of time, they open up a whole new mental accounting period. Just like an accountant closes the books at the end of a fiscal year and opens up a fresh page to begin a whole new fiscal year, the event, whether it's January 1, the first of the month, a Monday, the end of a fiscal year, or making a wish on your birthday, this landmark creates a break from the past you. It separates you from the things that you feel are imperfect, and it silences all that judgment that you have about yourself. And here's the cool thing. When you shut that judge inside you down, you open the door to a whole new vision for yourself. It creates a break from your past self, the things that you feel are imperfect about you or your life, and the things that you judge yourself for. And here's what's really amazing. When you stop judging yourself and you stop focusing on what you think is wrong with your life, you open up the floodgates to what might be. So let's go back to that moment when you make a wish on your birthday. As soon as you see that cake coming with those candles burning, you go in. You stop hearing everyone singing. You close your eyes. Why? Because mentally, a new accounting period is opening up. You stop caring about the song and the people around you and what's happening outside of you. You tune into what you're feeling on the inside, in your heart, in your soul, what you dream about, that thing that's calling from you deep inside that normally you can't hear because you're so focused on all the stupid stuff that we all obsess about. No one even has to tell you to close your eyes. You see that cake coming. You know that you can make a wish. You just do it naturally. And when you go inward, you're disrupting the circuitry of your old thinking, your old judgments, and your past habits. For just a moment, you're escaping the old you. And then you make the wish, a wish for what could be, a wish for what will happen this year, in the next year of your life. And the same thing happens when you sit down at the end of the year and you create resolutions, not the one you share with people at a party. I'm talking about the real ones that you write down in your journal. Here's another moment like that. You know that moment after a really painful breakup? This one takes a little bit of time because you basically need to cry and feel bad about yourself for about a month or two, you know. And then one morning, you wake up and you realize, oh my God, I'm happy that's over. I'm better off single. And you let go of the relationship and the version of you who was holding on to it for so long. And more importantly, in that moment of acceptance, you stop judging yourself and you realize you'll be okay. No, you'll be more than okay. You're going to be great because of this. And then you start to do the work to create a better life. These temporal landmarks are a big psychological deal because something really profound happens inside of you for a second. You snap out of all the stressful bullshit that's going on and the relentless self-criticism, and you have this mental freedom, this temporary break from your normal negative thinking, and you allow yourself to consider the bigger picture. You allow yourself to envision the future you. You tap into your deepest hopes, your wildest dreams, and your most exciting aspirations. You see a vision for a better life. You see that, yes, you deserve to be happy. And that's exactly what I want you and I to experience today on episode 1 of the Mel Robbins podcast. Let's hold each other's hand and sit side by side and imagine what might be possible in the next year of our lives if we let go of the past and we hold on to our dreams. That's the invitation I'm giving to you. Allow yourself to have a fresh start. You don't have to wait for your birthday or January 1st to change your life. You can turn the page on the past and start writing that new chapter today. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to share the 3 simple steps that you can use to create that powerful change that you've been wishing, wanting, or dreaming about. The fact is, change is possible, and you can't convince me otherwise. I know you might try, but I know that it's a fact. Change is possible. It's possible for everyone, and it's possible for you. Now, we're going to talk about this in depth, but the bottom line is, if you can imagine that new chapter, there is a way to make it happen. And I guarantee you, someone else on the planet has done it. I mean, there's about 8 billion people on this planet. Someone else has faced what you're going through right now. Someone else has built the company that you dream about building. Someone else has gone from where you are to where you envision yourself going. Someone else has improved their relationship, healed their mental illness, And if someone else has done it, you can do it too. Start seeing people in the world around you as evidence of your own success being possible. I want you to start saying to yourself, if they can do it, then I can do it. Other people's success just proves that you're worthy of what you want. And more importantly, that you're capable of reverse engineering how they got there and doing the work to get it for yourself. Now, I get it. It might not happen the same way or look the same way. You might not be starting on the same starting line. And it might not take the same amount of time. But if you keep telling yourself, if they can do it, I can do it, you're going to change your mindset. And you're going to see that, yes, it's true. There is limitless success, love, money, and happiness. There's enough for everyone, and there's enough for you. And I want you to use me as an example from time to time. If Mel Robbins can do it, then I can do it. And honestly, I'm going to be looking to you for the same encouragement from time to time, because I'm sure there are things you've accomplished or experienced that I haven't. So let's agree. We're going to encourage one another through this thing, okay? I know how to create massive change because I just did this in my own life. Over the past 2 years, I've completely reinvented myself in every aspect of my life. And look, I'm not being dramatic. It's a fact. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. The Mel Robbins that you're hearing right now is not the Mel Robbins that I was just 2 years ago. 2 years ago to this exact birthday, on the day that I turned 52, I did not wake up and feel like $1 million. I did not see an open road. I saw a dead end. I was not kicking ass and taking names. 2 years ago, when I turned 52, I was sucking wind. I woke up all alone. I felt lost and stuck and scared. Here's what was going on in my life. I had just been fired from my dream job. And look, I'd been fired from other jobs in the past when I was younger, but boy, at 52, that really stings. Then with COVID, the speaking and event business came to a halt. And as a small business owner, I'm responsible for the livelihood and health care of 15 families, including my own. So I started to panic. As the income dried up, I had no idea how I was going to continue to make payroll. And to add to that, I had people in my inner circle that betrayed me. They lied to me. They stole from me. So I just felt rocked because people that I trusted, that I had counted on, had violated that trust. That's what made me feel so damn alone. Plus, then college was canceled. Remember that? So we were all under the same roof with our 3 kids, 2 of whom were in college, and they were all anxious and angry and sad and grieving. I mean, it was like living with caged animals. I bet you felt a lot of these same things. And finally, my husband, Chris, he had just been diagnosed with long-term depression. I mean, talk about a shitstorm. I felt like absolutely everything was spiraling out of control. So here I am on my 52nd birthday with all this going on. And I wake up in the bunk room at my mother-in-law's house where we're quarantining. And I just started crying. The sadness that I had been trying to push down, it just poured out of me. And I instinctually picked up my phone and I just started filming how I felt. I figured someone out there on the internet would relate. And maybe, just maybe, they might even be able to give me some encouragement back. Now, when we come back after a short word from our sponsors, I'm going to play that video that I made on my 52nd birthday. And you're going to hear that sad, lost Mel Robbins. And I want you to hear it because I want you to know I've been there, and I've been there recently. And clearly, if I'm where I'm at now, kicking ass, taking names, going after my dreams, doing better than ever, I know how to bridge the gap from where you are to where you want to go. And later in the episode, I'm going to share those 3 steps with you that I took to make powerful changes and reinvent my whole life so that you can use those same proven, simple steps to make whatever changes you want in the next year of your life. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.